Hello, beautiful souls. I'm Jenny Aiello, and this is With Love, Jenny, a podcast where we meet ourselves right in the heart of our vulnerability and authenticity. In this sacred space where it's just you and I dive into real life, rich with wisdom and opportunities for deep healing. I explore what it means to truly connect to ourselves, to each other, and to something much greater than us all. In each podcast, I like to meet life right where it touches us most, in our tenderness, in our truth, in our struggles and our strength. So wherever you are on your journey, or whatever it is that you're carrying, no matter how light or heavy, just know I'm so grateful that you're here with me today. So take a deep breath, settle in, and let's begin today's episode. I remember a moment years ago when everything in my life felt like it was happening at the same time. There were responsibilities pulling on me literally from every direction. Children, parents, decisions that couldn't wait, a business. People around me looked to me as the one who would just hold everything together. And I remembered thinking, I just have to get through this one day. Let me just get through today or the next day. Let me just get through this next conversation. Let me just get through the next problem that needs to be solved. It was sort of like hopping from a lily pad to the next lily pad and having no real direction other than, at the end of the day, land exhausted, but satisfied with how productive I had been, getting nowhere. And I think I did what I see many women do. I became very good at moving quickly and solving things quickly, adjusting to my environment, what was happening quickly, and just holding it all together quickly. From the outside, people would say, gosh, you're so strong. But what they couldn't see was that my nervous system had learned something very powerful. I had learned the art of living in urgency, always bracing for that next thing, always moving to the next moment before I could actually feel where it was. And the truth is, many people, many women especially, they never unlearn that. Even when a crisis passes, even when life settles down, sometimes that's when my nervous system got most activated. Even when children are grown and they're out of the house and the house is quiet again, the body still believes it has to move fast to stay safe. That realization is what led me to begin asking different questions and seeking different answers. What would it look like not to live from this place of urgency, not living from that place of who needed something from me, or what did I get done today, or what problem is going to need to be solved, and how might I help? And I noticed something pretty profound, that nothing was actually wrong. There was no emergency, there was no crisis, there was no deadline breathing down my neck, but my body was still moving as if it was, as if there was going to be something happening. And I sat there for a moment and I just thought, how many years of my life have I lived like this? Always a little ahead of the moment. Always anticipating the next and the next. Always carrying some kind of worry or fear or anxiety about what was going to pop up next. On my 60th birthday, Bob and I went to Sedona for a week just to unplug from a lot of that chaos. And we stayed at this wonderful Airbnb, and the woman who ran the Airbnb, her name was Megan, and she had horses, and a medicine wheel, and she did all kinds of really cool things that are normal in Sedona. But one of them was a horse divination, and I didn't even know what it was, but I knew that whatever it was, I wanted to experience it. And so we did, and she and I were in the ring with one of the horses of my choosing, and we just walked and talked, and she read the horse. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I have had some different teachers in the realm of horse speak. I don't know how they do it, but it is the most beautiful experience if you've never had that. Equine therapy and someone trained to really be a horse whisperer, understanding what the horse is saying, because horses read a 360-degree energy field, and they won't trust you if you're out of alignment. And they let you know there's something that needs assistance, and they actually go to it. If you just stand still, they will actually help you heal. So if you're interested in that, that'll be a topic for another day. But here I was on my 60th birthday celebration with Bob, and I'm in this ring with Megan and the horse, and it stood beside me and stomping its left foot kind of hard, and just kind of kept stomping its foot. And she picked it up. She picked up his leg and looked at the bottom of his hoof, and dusted it off and let it sit back down for a second. And she looked up at me and she said, "Jenny, how's your sovereignty?" And in that urgency, that hurriedness, that way that I had trained myself to answer the question before it's asked, I did. "Oh, my sovereignty's great. It's good. It's good." And we moved on. But I never forgot that moment, because the answer came from that place of urgency, that quickness that just said, everything's fine. Everything's fine. No worries. Everything's fine. Meanwhile, everything's not fine. My nervous system was trying to tell me, this beautiful horse was trying to tell me, "Jenny, you've got to slow down. You've got to take care of yourself and your nervous system. You've got to do some serious work." But I didn't want to hear it then. And at the same time, that question remained with me, and it still does. How is my sovereignty? And to be honest, I had to come home and look it up. What's it mean if your sovereignty is in check? What does it mean to live in sovereignty? That was the question that lingered over the years. And it's the reason that I'm doing this next series on sovereignty. I just concluded the 10 hardest things I've had to encounter in my lifetime. There were many more, but these hit the top 10 list. If you didn't hear those episodes, go back and listen to them. It takes you through my life in a very vulnerable and transparent way of all the things that caused me to develop a superpower for how to anticipate the next moment and look really strong and get through very hard, difficult moments. So let me take a step back for a minute and say, hello, beautiful friends. I am so thankful that you're here with me. And I just wanted to begin today a little different than my usual. Instead of jumping straight into that topic, I wanted to share a little bit of that background. And I want to talk about where we're going to be going together over the next several months, because something huge has been shifting in me and in my life. And it has shifted. I felt myself crossing a threshold of some sort. For a long time on this podcast and in the work I do, I share those personal stories about divorce, stories about grief and loss, stories about addiction and the family dynamics, stories about the stress of caregiving, estrangement, living with some chronic pain. It was all real life to me. And I've shared those stories because I want you to know something very important, that if you're out there resonating with any one of those, or heaven forbid, all of those, that you're not alone. But lately I've been sensing that something new is emerging. It's not just for me, but I've watched it in my clients. I see it in many of you. And that word that keeps rising for me this year happens to be sovereignty. As a matter of fact, it emerged as the word of the year for me for 2026, the year of the fire horse. For me, the year of sovereignty. Let me tell you who I think might be listening to me right now. And you tell me if this is you. You're likely a woman who has lived a full life. Not a perfect life, but a real life, a real one. I think that you have loved deeply. I think you've carried a lot of responsibility. I think you've walked through seasons of your life that stretched you a little further than you expected. Maybe you've experienced divorce, maybe loss, maybe addiction is somewhere in your family. Maybe you yourself have struggled with addiction. Perhaps you've gone through a health challenge. Maybe you're overseeing the care of aging parents. Maybe you're busy raising children while they try to hold on to their childhood while going off into the world. Maybe you have just been the strong one, the dependable one, the one who always figures things out, the one who keeps things moving forward. And from the outside, maybe people look at you and your life and they think, wow, she is doing great. And inside, maybe sometimes you feel tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix. Not exhausted from life, but exhausted from carrying too much for too long. And somewhere inside of you, there is a quiet question that's been beginning to get louder. What does the next chapter look like for me? What is it supposed to look like for me? Well, here's the truth. At some point in life, the question shifts. It shifts from how do I survive this to how do I heal this to how do I live the rest of my life differently, not harder, not faster, but truer. And that shift is what I call sovereignty. Sovereignty is not about independence. It's not about pushing people away or even making a change outside. It's not proving how strong we are. It's about something actually much quieter. No longer abandoning ourselves. That's what it means to me. No longer rushing through life trying to keep up with expectations that were never truly yours. No longer performing for our worth. No longer overriding our intuition just to keep peace. A sovereign woman begins to live from the center of herself, not the outer parts of her life. And that kind of shift doesn't happen in a single coaching session. It unfolds over time, which is why these next episodes of this podcast are going to be a little bit different. Because over the next several months, we're going to begin something that I'm calling the Sovereign Woman series, where each episode is going to explore a different aspect of what it means to live with deeper alignment, more clarity, and an examination of self-trust. And I want to tell you something very honestly. If you're in a season of life where you feel that quiet stirring inside, maybe that need for quiet, for stillness, or maybe you're still running hard because the quiet stillness is so uncomfortable. So you may not want to miss a single episode, please subscribe, please like, do whatever you do so that you get alerted when there's a new episode. Each one builds on the next. Every 2 weeks, we're going to walk on this path together, step by step and conversation by conversation. Even as I am sharing my thoughts about it, gain insights. The more I live into it, the more I grow, the more I learn, the more I expand, the more I get familiar with what it means to be sovereign. So in the coming weeks, we're going to talk about things that many men and women feel, but they rarely will say it out loud. We're going to begin by talking about something I see everywhere right now, especially in high-functioning women, and that is the addiction to urgency. Why do so many capable, responsible women feel like they cannot slow down even when they desperately want to? And then we're going to go to something even deeper. How do we rest and not feel guilty? Why so many of us feel uncomfortable when life finally is quiet. And we'll explore the power of something very simple but incredibly difficult to do: a clean no. No is a complete sentence. How do we say no? Which leads us to learning how to set boundaries without explaining or defending or even apologizing for our own needs. Then we're going to talk about the hidden exhaustion of being that strong person that everyone admires and happily gives more to figure out, to solve, to help, to restore. Friends and family call to say, I've got this problem, can you help me? An emergency happens, someone's in crisis. You're on the front lines all the time because you're the strong one. You're the one that everyone else depends on, but who rarely feels supported herself. And we'll talk about something that I call the sacred pace. Learning to move at the speed your own soul requires, rather than the expectation of the outside world around us. So we'll explore relationships and money and leadership and the courage it takes to live from that deeper truth, and ultimately what it means to step into a season of your life where you are no longer proving yourself. And for me, I think I was the one who I was trying to prove myself to more than anyone else, which meant that I spent most of my life missing the approval, the appreciation, the recognition that I deserved because I was so busy proving to myself I was worthy of it. That's a big one for me. Moving into a season of life where you simply live from the woman you have become. Sovereignty isn't an end point. Living from sovereignty is crossing a threshold of where you focus. And why this is so important is that I believe many women reach a moment in life where something inside them says, you know what, I cannot live the next 20 years the way I lived the last 20. And that was me when I turned 60. I cannot live the next 20 years of my life the same way I've lived the last 20. Not because they were wrong or because something needed to be changed, not because I needed to uproot, to move, to leave a relationship, but because something new inside me wanted to emerge. I wanted to live with deeper clarity about who I am in this world. I wanted to explore deeper wisdom that was buried underneath my busyness, a deeper desire to live in alignment And to do that, I had to know who I was. And when that moment arrives, it's both beautiful and unsettling because sovereignty, let me tell you, it requires courage. It asks us to make decisions from a different place. You all have heard, if you've listened to prior podcasts, that I am a recovering people pleaser. And my people pleasing caused me to compromise my sovereignty. My needs were secondary to everyone else's, and that's not living truth. So, yeah, I had to start making decisions differently and to trust myself more deeply and to release expectations that people had of me that no longer fit. But the reward for that, well, the reward for this work, it's extraordinary. It's peace, it's clarity, it's alignment, and a life that finally feels like it's yours instead of living for everyone else's. So today, I simply want to invite you into this journey with me. I want to invite you to find yourself resonating with what I'm saying. If something inside you is going, yeah, I do that. Yeah, maybe I am unable to rest. And if I do, I'm filled with guilt. Maybe I am addicted to drama, to urgency, to creating a crisis so that I can be needed by someone. Like crossing boundaries just to visit in someone else's world and make it about them and not me. Do you ever do that? Where you know that there's something coming up and it's something for you to learn about yourself, only you make it about the other person? I can't tell you how often I work with couples, and when I try to say and lead to that place of alignment, it means that there's no blame. No one can make you feel something that you don't already feel about yourself. Everything in life, according to the universal laws, is mirroring back a frequency, a vibration that you're putting out into the universe. So if you have a deep belief that you feel you're not good enough, you're going to attract all kinds of experiences where that's how you feel. And then the person who's making you feel that says, you know what? I know you mopped the floor, but it's not good enough. You know what? I know you did that, but it's not good enough. You get the feedback. So if you want to really examine your life and know, how am I going to reach a level of sovereignty if I think I'm already there, but I'm not, you have to look at, where do you give your power away? That's all that means. When you give your power away, you're no longer in alignment. Who do you give your power to? Anytime it's external, you've missed the invitation. It's never about what's going on around us. It never is. It's about what's going on inside of you, that you attracted an experience to reveal something that needs released or healed or addressed in your belief system, and you made it about the other person. It's very hard because in sovereignty, you take full responsibility for that. The other part about this conversation that is really big is what I ask in one of the trainings I do. That's the question, who are you? Who am I? If I asked you to write that down, who am I? What's your answer? Who am I? What is my life about? And immediately, for me, my role in life, the roles that I play. Well, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a life coach. Those are all roles that I play in life. Okay? They're not who I am. We have to go deep to find that answer. And guess what? When you go deep and you think you find that answer, it turns out to be an identity that you wear like a mask and think it's you. We have to do some identity shifting to be sure that you have reached the raw, naked truth about who you are in your most authentic version. Who am I? And not the role you play, and maybe not the identity that you wear through life. There's I would say a polarity risk here in this conversation, but we have an identity crisis going on in our country and the world, to the point that people now have to say, I identify as, and they fill in the blank. And the question is, what is true? Which is true? Which identity is true? Your true authenticity. And I'm here to tell you that it's not through that identity. The identity is what we put on, like our clothes every day to go out in the world. I'm not saying we're supposed to all undress and go around naked, but in our conversation of our spirit and our soul, yeah, what's it mean to live from that truth? To know absolute truth. Our roles and our identities that who we think we are validate the experiences we have in life. They also attract them. And so, answering the question, who am I? When you finish writing down what you think the answer is, test it. Do I believe I am those things that I wrote down? Do I believe I am that? And if you don't, it's a block, if that's true. And if you don't believe it, then maybe you haven't gone deep enough. If you ever opened old days of youth, I think they still make newspapers, but there used to always be in the newspaper, I would always go to the page and they would list your horoscope for the day. And I just always thought that was so cool when it was always an optimistic kind of implanting of my mind. And so the morning paper would come and I would look and I would read my horoscope for the day, and it was usually bright and wonderful. And I would go out with a belief that my day is going to be bright and wonderful, and it would be. Why did that happen? And universal law of cause and effect, universal law of correspondence, universal law of vibration, all of those explain it, from quantum physics to a very science-based to the woo-woo, whatever language you want to translate it in. When our thought and our feeling align, and we can hold that in alignment to something deep inside us about who we are in the world, then we're in alignment with our sovereignty, and we create. And when we create from sovereignty, you guys, life is really good. Yep, we still have challenges. Yes, we still have healing to do. Yes, we still will get hurt or wounded by somebody else. And everybody's like, well, I wouldn't have ever asked for that. I wouldn't have wanted that. I definitely would have argued your face off 45 years ago or 46 years ago when I went through a divorce in my early 20s or mid 20s. I would have argued that I wanted it. I did not want that. I did not forecast that. I did not create that outcome. There's no way did I want that. But when I look back, I see how something in me was saying, no, this is going in a direction where who I was at that point, which was deeply codependent, was never going to be able to get to the place of sovereignty because I was compromising myself in my codependency, in my people pleasing. And there was a moment, a defining moment, actually 2 defining moments where I knew what was best, even though I didn't want that to be true. And I'm thankful today that I listened to that quiet voice that was coming from my sovereignty. I didn't have the name for it then. I probably cussed it out back then because it wasn't something that I wanted. But I'm dwelling on these stories I'm telling you, and I'm dwelling on these points I'm making because I want you to know it's not about, am I satisfied with life? It's not about any of that. If life looks good from the outside and it's feeling good from the inside, surely, I'm in a good place. It's the fact that we let life bury our sovereignty so quickly. It can happen just so fast, and we don't even see it. It's like going 90 miles an hour down the interstate and looking up and seeing a sign and trying to read all the words on it before you pass it. You can't do it. And so your sovereignty's at risk. And your truth, living your truth, is at risk. Another way this shows up for me is that I had the hardest time saying no to people. That was the people pleaser. I didn't know how to say no. I would get invited back in the day to so many network marketing parties. I actually invited people to my own. I was a consultant for scrapbooking for a long time. And so I started being that, right? And it served me a little bit in my business because I didn't want people to come that weren't a solid yes. And if they weren't, they came because they needed a friend to go with them or something. And so they got roped into it because they didn't know how to say no. My job then was to say, it's all right if you don't want to be here, but hopefully something that I share with you is going to resonate and make you think about life in a more positive way and approach life in a way that is more fun and creative, because that's what that meant to me. But when I got invited to the 5th cosmetic skincare makeup party that month, I had a hard time saying no, and I would go. And when I went, I had a hard time not buying something because I wanted to support them. And I ended up with so many things that I had no business buying. I spend a lot of money supporting others in their business. And I love that aspect of it because that would be something true for me. But where that decision came from wasn't my truth. Where that decision came from was not letting someone down or not disappointing them. It didn't come from that place of generosity. It was only in hindsight that I could grab onto that. It was really hard for me to learn that power of saying no, even no to myself and my impulsive decisions. Saying no, let's sleep on it and make sure this is a wise choice. Learning to listen, because you guys, there is a GPS compass inside of us, and it talks to us. Recalculate route. It's like screaming because we have made a wrong turn in life. How well do we listen to that voice? How well do we respond to it? That's sovereignty. And that day back in Sedona, when she said, "How's your sovereignty?" it was not even in existence. Maybe it was a little bit, but it wasn't in a conscious awareness at all. I wasn't listening. I was surviving. I was too busy surviving life and everything it threw at me. And it took me on this journey, and it led me to learning about spiritual psychology. It led me to learning about bringing the E4 trauma method into my coaching to help people release, because that is what sabotages our sovereignty. It's our unhealed wounds and our unprocessed and not released yet trauma stored in the subconscious mind. And I would say, what word would I use? It houses. It houses our sovereignty in a way that we get to make mistakes. So it allows us to make mistakes by abandoning ourselves. And wow, did I do. I abandoned my needs, my desires, my dreams, my ethics, even. Sometimes just crossing boundaries and not sticking to my gun, sticking to what I know is true for me, for my worth. And so I'm excited about these next podcast topics. I hope you are as well. I just today want to invite you to jump in and don't miss an episode. Come with me on this journey. Reflect on conversations you're having in between episodes, right? Reflect on how you're doing. Like, what are you noticing? Do you notice? Is it a person that you are guilty of abandoning yourself for to meet their needs? Is there a place in your life where you feel a burden that you can't release? Is there a place in your life where your priorities are all off? Is there situations you find yourself in where you don't know how to put a boundary, say no? You're, spending a day doing something you never would have wanted to do, but it's making somebody else happy. Obligation. Is someone in your life being that way with you? And you capitalize on that. I know that with Bob, who's a people pleaser too, I would say in our later years here that's starting to work for us. So we take such good care of each other that you can't notice if we're not taking good care of ourselves. And at a time when I was taking so many people, I was taking care of kids, I was taking care of parents, I was taking care of our pets, I was taking care of our business, I was taking care of everything. And I would look at Bob and say, you know what? I can't take care of you too. You're going to have to start taking care of yourself. And that was hard. That was hard because we naturally did that. But at a time when we were both pleasing so many people that it made it hard to take care of ourselves, we had to learn to do that. I had to learn to do that. Not depend on him to do all the things he did for me. I had to step up. And he had to step up. And we learned from it, and we grew together, thankfully. But we reflected on so many conversations that we had in so many situations where we abandoned our sovereignty. So reflect on the conversations. Reflect on what's happening in your life and share them. Share those conversations with someone that you can trust, who might be interested in that journey too. Because transformation doesn't happen often in a single moment. It's not like you wake up into this whole new experience. It happens through a lot of small awakenings. It happens in tiny moments sometimes. And then all of a sudden, that last moment creates the biggest aha. But without the string of other moments, you may not have gotten there. And I believe this is why this series came into existence. I believe it's what this series is going to become, is a series of awakenings. And awakenings, gosh, they're not easy. Neither is transformation. My business is about how do we heal, transform, and grow. That's what I've been about. And I was planning this upcoming retreat. It is in Costa Rica, so I'll just give you a little glimpse about it, and I would love for you to ask me more about it if it's a match for you, but I'm excited about it. And you know why? Because so far, my retreats have been, wow, deep dive into wounds and traumas and releasing them, creating new belief systems, creating new ways of being, the heal and the transform and the grow. The growth that came out of those retreats is phenomenal. Phenomenal. And that is not going away. But I felt myself say at my last retreat, I wonder if this is the last retreat, because I felt like we've done it. We've arrived at the people who come year after year to my retreats, and I have a group of people that have become very close friends because of meeting long ago at their first retreat, and they've walked each other, not just with me, but with each other through their growth process, through their healing process. We have transformed life after life after life. And I say we because it's not any, I'm not your guru, as Tony Robbins says, but I hold a space for you to explore the depths of you, of who you are. And my whole goal was getting you into alignment. And into alignment with what? And that's where we are now. The next phase is heal, transform, grow, and live from sovereignty. How is yours? How's your sovereignty? How well do you live and speak and eat and communicate from your truth without apology? I would love to hear what your thoughts are right now. I really want to hear what's going through your mind and what your questions are. And I hear someone saying, where do I start? What's next? Like, how do I do this? And I am going to tell you that we will be doing it. And every 2 weeks, and it's spaced out so that you have time to integrate, because it's a process. There's a lot of parts to it. And the very first is being open to an awakening. And that awakening doesn't come like morning sunrise, where we yawn and stretch and lazily get out of bed and greet the day. It comes like an earthquake. It comes like a storm. It hits you behind the knees and knocks you down. That's what true awakenings do. And you have no choice after an awakening but to look at your life differently, to become aware of what your blind spots were that led to it. And I am going to walk you through this really cool process. The full event will be unveiled at my retreat in August in Costa Rica. And we will be working on identity and sovereignty as a complement to our healing and growth and transformation journey. So I want to thank you for being here with me today, for letting me ramble a little bit. Thank you, as always, for sharing this sacred space with me. And if this conversation excites you and it resonates with you and you're curious at all about it, if I woke up that still small voice inside that's knocking on the lens of your soul saying, are you listening? go listen to the next podcast. Make sure that you're following or you're subscribed or whatever you do that gives you the heads up new podcast, okay? So that you don't miss one single episode. It's going to be both riveting and satisfying and inspiring. That's my intention. We're going to begin the next conversation about what many of you are struggling with more than you even realize, and that is our addiction to living from urgency. So until then, I invite you, take a deep breath, exhale really slowly, sit in that quiet stillness at the end of that exhale. Slow down just a little for just a moment. And remember, your life, it's not a race. Your life is perfectly made. It's perfect where you are. But we are going to still go further. And it's not just about sovereignty. It's about settling that nervous system down because it is on fire. The year of the fire horse came racing in on fire for me. And it activated those feelings, that sense of urgency. So I've had to consciously choose incorporating a spiritual ritual into my day every day. Prayer, stillness, breath work, whatever starts to calm my nervous system down, to set the tone. And sometimes by 2:00, that's exactly what I have to do again. And the fastest way for me to do that is 3 big, deep, diaphragm expanding breaths that I exhale twice as slowly as the inhale. I go to a count of 4 and out with 8. I can go to a count of 3 and out with 6, whatever it looks like. The long, slow exhale, I feel my whole body and my nervous system start to settle. And I protect that space. So I hope you will practice that over the next couple of weeks before the next episode is unveiled. I hope you'll come with me. You'll learn about some breath work. You'll learn about spiritual space that you create in your life every single day. I know that those 10 hardest things episodes that I shared, I couldn't have gotten through it without learning all that. That got me through it and led me across a threshold straight into sovereignty. So I hope you'll join me, as always, with love. Take care. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you found a spark of wisdom to carry with you, and maybe even a deeper invitation to heal and grow and transform through your own beautiful story. Or maybe this episode made you think of someone who could use encouragement. And if so, I hope you will share it with them. If you'd like to learn more about working with me or attending one of my healing retreats, coaching programs, and other offerings, you can visit my website at jennyaiello.com or email me directly at jenny@jaiello.com. You'll find all the links in the show notes. If today's episode touched you, it would mean the world if you would leave a review or share it with someone who might need it, or just reach out and let me know how it landed for you. I'd love to hear from you. I'm building something special here. Real stories, real life, real connection. One episode, one heart, and one story at a time. As always, with love. Oh, and this is the legal message, but mostly a message from my heart, and I just need to share this with you right now. Please know this podcast is offered solely for educational and entertainment purposes. If you find yourself triggered due to anything that was shared in this podcast, please seek professional help. This podcast is not intended to be a substitute for mental health services. While I am a professional life coach, I am not a psychotherapist, nor am I a mental health clinician. So if you are struggling emotionally, please seek help because you matter, you are important, and most of all, you are worthy of doing this work, the work that leads you to a better and healthier place. Okay? All right. Thank you. And please always make enough time to take care of yourself and do so with love.